Oh, sorry, I didn't know we were recording. Okay.
Love that.
And welcome. We are back. This is the Bottomless Podcast. That is spelled BTTMLESS. If you are a return listener, welcome back. And my God, we love you. And thank you. If you are a first-time listener, welcome. We hope you stick around. So for introductions, my name is Kevin, and I am joined by
Vincent.
Got my microphone. And Leslie.
Vincent, Leslie, and Kevin. Just three friends. Nobody important. Nobody famous. I live in Floribama. Vince lives in LA. Leslie lives in Hawaii. And yeah, we just address topics and things of conversation that we think would be interesting.
That's us.
We ramble.
And drink sometimes.
Sometimes. Have you guys seen that latest story that came out about there was some white professor, university professor, who was pretending to be Chicano, and was like ousted and then got fired? And she released some kind of statement that was like, "I'm so deeply sorry to anybody who I accidentally hurt." Da da da. Did you guys see that?
Wait. Before I say it, before you say anything, it was a she.
Yeah.
Was she bad?
Okay.
Vince, don't.
Let me honestly look it back up because I just saw in passing. To be honest, I didn't even read the article, which I don't think is an issue to discuss it. Just if you just Google like Chicano professor fired, white, just like all the terms that would go into the.
Kevin's saying, baby girl, I'll whisper them sweet nothings in your ear. You can be Chicana.
Okay, yeah.
You
So
be black. I'll call you
the-
what you want me to call you.
The title of the article is "White College Professor Exposed by Blogger for Posing as Chicana Resigns." Furman College assistant professor Kelly Keene Sharp, who taught African studies, resigns after an anonymous blog revealed she was posing as Mexican. And this is not the first story I've seen like this. I've just seen like a steady stream flowing in over the past year. So the point is not so much as like tearing into all the details of each incident. I was just curious your guys' reactions to this kind of story.
Hey Kelly, go fuck yourself. I looked your pictures up. You ain't bad. Kelly, go fuck yourself.
Not being the deal breaker.
I'm not accepting that analysis. Try again.
Kelly.
Nope.
Kelly, let me rock. Kelly, as someone who actually, I'm going to admit a little bit of ignorance here. I don't know if when people say Chicana, if they specifically mean Mexican. That might specifically be Mexican culture, and if it is, then I have no room to speak. But from someone who is,
you can still speak.
Yeah, I mean, well, to claim some bit of authority as if, so I'm Hispanic. My father's Puerto Rican, born and raised in the islands of Puerto Rico, so I'm raised in that heritage by him. And so yeah, it's weird to just see someone who's not Hispanic like walk around and say they're Hispanic. I get it if maybe you're that in love with the culture, but then at the same time, like, have some integrity, be proud of whatever culture and heritage you came from, claim that, research it, do it to figure out what's beautiful about your own, and leave ours the fuck alone and just admit that you have an appreciation for it.
Ooh. And for context, for us and our audience, Chicana is Mexican American specific.
See,
it's usually deployed like a heritage, but there's like an implied piece of it that's pushing back on like white Western or not Western, but like American hegemony, right? Like kind of a callback to more like pre-colonial, like indigenous groups, like that heritage of Mexican.
And to give further context for maybe first-time listeners who are just listening on Spotify, Vincent is half black and half white. He's black. I'm half Korean, half white. I'm Korean. Kevin, as you mentioned, is half Puerto Rican, half Korean, just because it does color, right? Like it colors the conversation.
For sure.
Yeah. So
for sure.
None of us are Mexican American, but all of us are
It
Um,
colors the conversation.
Did you call me colored? You calling me colored?
it felt like you called me colored.
Vince, what do you think? What are your reactions to these types of stories?
It's so ridiculous, and I think it's in the abstract worth making fun of. I don't want to make fun of someone that, to me, it's like clearly a sign of some sort of mental, like if you genuinely, unless it's like a cynical deployment to get yourself like some extra clout or some extra opportunity, like taking advantage of like some sort of affirmative action. But I think of like Rachel Dolezal, where to me it's like clearly some sort of mental offness. So I don't want to be too mean in particular to any one person, but it's fucked up. Like it's silly, and it's, I can't. I
You
literally
know,
can't.
I'm gonna provide an alternative. I think listen, there's a culture
Do it.
amongst Jap.
He did the
There's a
arm swing. We're in. We're in.
So
Do
he's
it.
about to
a
tell us he
It's
identifies
lit. It's lit.
as
The shot is
black.
kicking in. The shot is kicking in. Say it.
there's
Do
a
it.
culture amongst Japanese b-boys who they love black culture so much, they'll tell you they wish they were black. And amongst Asian cultures, Chinese and Japanese, when they see a black person, especially in the rural areas of China where they've never seen a black person, they'll touch their hair and they're so fascinated with it. I don't think that's a thing just amongst children where they see a culture and it's so powerful and strong to them that they want to emulate it and be it. I think there's a genuine thing in our country, especially amongst like, I'm not surprised this white lady is walking around saying she was Chicana, or Rachel Dolezal is walking around saying she was black because like in her features, she could possibly pass for like a light-skinned black lady. I think I'm not quick. It might be a mental thing, but I'm not gonna be so quick as to give her the pass of, oh, it might be a legitimate mental illness. Bitch, I think you motherfuckers need to take accountability as adults, be honest, and say that you are an accountable, rational, well-functioning member of society, and you got caught in some bullshit of trying to identify with something you don't belong to, and therefore don't carry the psychological trauma of the heritage and the history. Own up to it. Don't pass it off as mental illness if that's not a legitimate diagnosable mental illness, and admit you were wrong. Take your embarrassment, take your egg on your face, and move the fuck on and go learn about your own heritage, and stop trying to carry the heritage when you don't carry the psychological trauma of that heritage.
No, I agree. That's what I was saying. That's why I wanted to predicate that if it's not that cynical deployment to do that, like if it is that, then like fuck you. But if it's not, like I think there are people that have this misplaced identity, and that's like the pathology of it. It's not that I'm giving her a pass, but I think if there is any genuine sense of her being in her mind anchored or that she's Chicana, then it's like something's not working. So something's not clicking there. But regardless, like, no, I'm not. She needs to get fired.
I pay some real Chicana woman to whoop your ass. I bet you question twice if you actually Chicana.
Well,
What's up? What's up?
What's up?
What's up? What's up?
I really
What's up?
appreciate. What's up? I really appreciate Vincent's incredibly empathetic take. My natural tendency is to not assume that, to leave room for that, but to assume that it's more in the vein of what Kevin was saying. And I do just want to acknowledge I haven't done the work to work out a good cohesive statement that I could share with you guys, but I do want to acknowledge this type of story is particularly fascinating to me as someone who does have a white mom, who the conversation of what it means to pass has been a part of my growing up experience, and how in some spaces I'm perceived as so Asian, in some spaces I'm perceived as like looking white or white passing. And it also depends on the time of year and what I'm wearing and how I do my hair and how I do my makeup. So that's just part of what adds a level of interest in these stories to me, of the psychology behind someone who is fully white trying to pass themselves off as somebody who is a minority, an ethnic minority in this country. And let's see if I can connect these dots floating around in my brain. So I think that it speaks to the harm of a politic that says representation matters above all else, because it has flattened the idea of what being a minority in this country means into a space to where a white person could interpret it in the same way that there is currently, or there was a few months ago, a fox eye trend going on Instagram. I don't know if you guys saw that, but there's a trend of non-Asian women, in large part white women.
Oh wow.
Yeah, make for those that are listening, Leslie's currently doing the very explicitly racist like eye pull thing that's done to like usually mock people of Asian descent. Is that via makeup or like surgery, like cosmetic surgery?
Well, the so-called fox eye trend was a trend of models and influencers pulling back their cheekbones in a gesture that somehow most of the people participating in this movement were calling, oh, it's like a fox eye, with no acknowledgement of the racist history of that motion, which I have experienced to my face as recently as a year ago from somebody who I was in relationship and thought that it was a joke.
Wow.
Hey.
So I think that these situations and these stories speak to the harm of saying, well, all that matters is that, you know, like Vincent referenced that meme of like, you know, some kind of bomber and it's like, oh, they're non-binary and black and like, it's so great. And it's like this idea of like what it means to be a minority in this country being turned into something, oh, well, what matters is that we think minorities are cool and fun and they can be just as white as us. Like they can be white, you know what I mean? Where white is this treated as this neutral standard of like goodness. As opposed to like, no, the fuck, they're different. And like, that's equally good. So it makes me think of that. And I will just say quickly that I don't think a lot of people would agree with me, but for me, I've struggled through even sometimes having issues. This is just me being very honest. I don't think this is necessarily right, but it speaks to my experiences leading up to the woman that I am now, to where even when people who are not Asian, women who are not Asian, or men or non-binary folks, when they do such extreme makeup, like the cat eye makeup, like apart from the gesture, I don't assume ill intent, but it just makes me squint a little bit. I'm just a little bit puzzled. And I'm so confused that, you know, plastic surgery is rampant, especially in South Korea, of women longing for this monolid, right? I'm half and I do have a clearly seeable eyelid. All Korean women and a lot of East Asian women like do not have that clearly seeable eyelid, and there's this thirst for this desire to be seen as beautiful according to the Western lens. And then over here we have non-Asian women in this country doing their makeup in such a way that creates that blocks out their eyelid, and that I will just say I make note of it and I don't feel thrilled about it. I think a lot of Asian women are more generous than me. Like I've looked into it as best I could. And I think a lot of Asian women are like, oh, when it's makeup, it's fine. Like they're not trying, you know, to me, I'm like, I just don't really get it. Like this is fucking something that women have shed tears over, that they have felt alien, that they have felt othered, that they have felt something is wrong with me, because even though we have so many more people, like contextually, globally, like if anything, we're more normal if we want to go there, and the way, you know. So anyway, that's just a little rabbit trail on that.
One thing I do want to like, I feel like I'm anticipating some people's thoughts when they hear these stories I want to debunk. The first one, just to be really clear, is like, I feel like there is a tendency in some people that misunderstand things like systemic racism and critical race theory. I feel like I saw some more conservative discourse that's like, well, just because everything's about racism now, like what do you expect? And I do feel like it's a misunderstanding of like race, what race is, both by people that have that critique and the people that either are cynically deploying it or have mental issues, and that they think it's an essentialization of race, where race is having your kinky hair and having more melanin, which are race is what racializing is. Like being Chicana or being black in Rachel Dolezal's case isn't just literally in my skin. It's the way that I interact with society based off that skin color, and that element of it gets erased, which is internalizing the logic of the oppressor, right? You're taking that, essentializing, which is what they do, right? You're brown, you're black, you're not white. Taking that and essentializing that as some sort of like innate biological truth, which just misses the mark. So just wanted to get that out of the way in case anyone thinks that this is some like prevalent issue of us talking about race. You're wrong.
Yes.
DM me, at me if you disagree, but you're wrong.
I love this. Yes, thank you. So the reason why I thought of talking about that, and Kevin, feel free to pipe in. Your eyebrows are going a little wild, so feel free to pipe in if you had another thought. But I was just going to say that the reason I thought of that as a sort of intro that we could talk about was because we wanted to talk about this idea of performance in society. And so that was like a loose, like, okay, someone is performing as, somebody that they're not.
Yeah.
But Kevin had a lot of strong feelings that sort of guided us to this topic.
Well, okay, so before we get into the performance topic, the one thing I do want to say is that, like, the one caveat that I want to put onto this.
Caveat with your caviar on top of this delicious appetizer.
The one thing that I wanted to say as a caveat to this whole trend of non-ethnic people identifying as ethnic people falsely and not clarifying. It reminds me of the cultural appropriation conversation, which is actually two different things. Because they're so nuanced. Yeah. But the thing that I wanted to say was, the caveat that I wanted to put on it was, me, not saying anyone has to follow this trend or mold. I think when somebody wants to emulate another culture, like in Halloween, you dress up and if you maybe you go to another culture, like maybe if you're a white person, if you spend a year in Korea and then some Korean friends invite you out. And so you go and wear some traditional Korean garb and because they're inviting you out to a party and I think those things are, and they like, hey, let us do your makeup in the way I think those things are okay. So I just want to put that caveat on there to say, like, I just think I think it's goofy. I think you're a fucking dweeb. And I think something's not clinically. I don't think something's clinically wrong with you. I think you're a fucking dork and a nerd.
That is the best summation of our reaction. Is you're a dweeb. You're
a fucking goofball, like who clearly doesn't have friends in life. But what I will because I think it's when you do it and you're not actually it, and you're trying to emulate something that you're not. That's the issue. But I just want to specifically say, just because I think I had so many opinions about the cultural appropriation conversation we won't get into now, but I just want to say that, like, if you do it, if you're emulating something, but you're paying homage to it and you're acknowledging that you're not it, but you're doing it in a respectable, in a tasteful, in a way that brings honor and light and respect and beauty to that, and a light to it in the way of saying, because I, like me, trying to rap is a birth child of Black culture. I am not Black, so I am a guest and an immigrant in that culture. And so when I rap, I do it, number one, I do it with quality, but I do it as an homage, as a payment to the culture, and saying that I am not Black, but I'm participating in something that I did not help create and that I'm not from, of culture that I'm not from. So if you do it in that way with the attitude of honor, respect, and acknowledging that you aren't from that culture, I think it's okay. But it's just it's these funny ass white motherfuckers who also don't have their culture intact for whatever goofy ass reason, go pay $99 for a fucking ancestry test and find out what the fuck you are and stop emulating shit that you find pretty and attractive. I do have a problem with that, of like, motherfucker, like, go find out if you're Scottish or Irish. Like, you have culture, and that shit, all cultures in their own right outside of America, wherever you came from, are beautiful. Go find out what the fuck you are, find the beauty in it, find all the amazing things about it, and go do the history and the research of it, and then emulate that shit and be that. But don't, like, because you fucking love bachata and salsa music and samba and fucking like Taco Bell and shit, you want to go fucking beat your go, like get your goofy white ass to your fucking culture and go figure out what the fuck you are.
Yeah, and there's a way to on the topic of Halloween costumes. Yes, it's very simple. If you want to dress up in the costume of somebody, a character or a real life person who's not your race or ethnicity, just wear the costume, do your hair, don't do blackface. Don't do your makeup in a way that tries to give you features that you do not possess. Like, just dress up and treat it like a costume. Like, yeah.
Fact.
So.
Drop a comment on our Instagram or YouTube if you want us to do a episode on cultural appropriation and race, because there's a lot of fertile ground there that
there's a lot of fertile ground.
I don't want to rabbit hole into.
And if I catch you in blackface, I'm gonna knock you the fuck out in the street and take your bag of candy.
Wait, what if I'm wearing blackface?
Oh, you Gucci. But if you're not black and you wearing blackface, I'm gonna punch you. I'm gonna punch you in your fucking face and take your bag of candy.
I can't with you. And a lot of fertile ground for us to learn too, because that's the other thing is I'm tired of this narrative. Like, oh, you're not white. You must be an expert on talking about anything to do with race. And race, you know, like a lot of fertile ground for us to learn from each other.
Yeah, for sure.
And from our listeners. So
for sure.
All right. So Kevin, what are your feelings on performance? A society in which we are raised, with performance as this key indicator of success.
So so there I was.
Oh,
there.
Why God?
There.
No!
There I was.
Sipping his wine.
2018.
Kevin is sipping his wine out of a wine glass.
That wine glass is fancy.
Vincent is sipping his peppermint tea, and I am sucking water out of a straw. Go ahead, Kevin.
And I won't say where I was because I don't want nobody to know exactly what I do in the Air Force. But I'm in an environment that is a rigorously intense academic environment. My schooling was 16 months. And you take a test.
Wow.
You take a test at the end to see if you can pass the program, and many other people. And so I'm in this environment where literally everyone's livelihood, their mental health, their happiness, their image of themselves is wrapped up in succeeding in this environment. And the one thing I noticed different about me from everyone else was I didn't care. Ultimately, I didn't care either way if I failed or I passed. I always have a mentality that when I set out to accomplish something and I want something in life, I prepare myself to be okay with not having it or not accomplishing it or failing. I established an ecosystem where nobody, not mom, not dad, not teacher, not boss, not mentor, not friends, not job, not society. No one is allowed in my ecosystem. And in my ecosystem, Kevin gets to decide what happiness and success means for Kevin. So I'm in this environment, everyone's identity and their happiness and my God, who we are as a people. And they're so wrapped up in succeeding and passing. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I try to start reverse engineering, and I think about when y'all were in grade school. Now,
I don't want to.
You do assignments, you take a test, you get a grade. Now, on the positive side of it, that's effective and necessary because you need society needs to create a constant feedback loop to tell you what kind of progress you're making. And in some sense,
Core has entered the chat, but go ahead.
In some sense,
entered the chat?
Common Core. In some sense, you do need tribes do this. Indigenous tribes as a whole have a collective mindset that will tell individuals in terms of progress, a feedback, like almost a rubric of who you are as a person in order to correct things that maybe need to be corrected or encourage things that are good and that they want to see more of. So in terms of gradings, in terms of rubric, in a sense, I get the utility of grades and rubrics in school. However, you become an adult, you get out of college, you're now in the real world, and you spent 22 years of your life letting grading systems, letting rubrics, letting numbers on a page determine your value.
Speak poet.
So fast forward, now here's Kevin in this academic environment. I literally, if I fail, I passed, but I failed the first 2 times. Let's be clear. They gave me 3 chances, which is not very rare. I shouldn't have got 3 chances. I failed.
Oh shit.
And so I passed the 3rd time, but the first 2 times I failed, I was just fine. I was just fine. So the type of conversation I want to bring up is how society, how schooling, how parents ingrain in us the things we want to perform in, why we care about those things, and how they determine our self-value, how we've been coerced into letting other people determine our self-value. So what are your guys'?
RCED.
Leslie's wildin' today.
Leslie is
wildin'. Throw back to that shot that we started the episode off with. This is the downstream.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But also mental health issues, right? Like I want to cover the whole array of spectrum that things like performance can affect. It's not just you get a job, you don't get a job. It's like, man, you can like your day can be fucked up. You come home from work and you didn't perform well. And your boss tells you like, it's like, oh, you fucked up and you messed up this thing or whatever. And it's like, fam, yes, to some extent, I should have a healthy gauge and calibration of if I messed up at work, I need to do better next time. But you shouldn't have
It's
your whole
better.
mental health thrown out of whack because like you fucked up at work. So what are y'all thoughts? Like, do you think I'm bugging? Do you think school plays a negative, also
He's
positive?
got
but
little
negative?
antennas growing out of his head. He's a bug.
Do you?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yo, they're gonna think that we're like tripping acid right now.
Yo, Leslie's on mushrooms.
Yo.
Leslie. For y'all that don't know, before we started the
Yo,
episode,
I
Leslie
took
did
one
mush.
shot and had one drink. I'm telling you guys, I
Well,
feel like
we also watched Rick and Morty, so that's like an acid trip in itself. So maybe
True,
that.
true. But I have heard repeatedly, it seems like the way that I react to these things is a little different. What gets highlighted and what comes out. So sorry that I'm way above you guys as far as where I've shot off to into the universe.
Leslie's like the perfect hype man. Like everything you need ad lib, she like ad lib the whole conversation. Like if I was a rap concert.
I was treating what you were saying as a spoken word poetry. When I get this is the thing, y'all. When I get truly under duress or lit, I interpret everything through a lens of art.
That's beautiful.
It's conceptual.
So like you, so that wait, that's like a genuine reaction you have to like you're in a
Yes.
zone, you're in a mood, you're in a vibe, and then that's what starts happening.
Art has saved my life. And
That's-
so when
that's-
I'm
no, that's
either
real.
under duress or I'm lit, I interpret things through a lens as if it is art. That's how I interpreted the Biden acceptance speech. Because when he messed up on a few of his points, it was a performance art piece, where we were watching this beautiful lights, color projection of like, oh yeah, everything's perfect now. And then it was like, oh, glitch in the machine, reminder of like what is actually going on. Does that
That's
make
real.
sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's real.
Flip that
That's
shit.
so real.
That makes too much sense. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
There's a lot in that, but I guess to start it off, because you mentioned like 2018, which is pretty recently. I'm curious what performance mean when you guys were young. Like we talked about grade school.
Yeah. This is good. What did performance look like as told to you by the combination of environmental factors? So your parents, the school you went to, your friend group, society at large, messaging in the broad internet discourse. What did performance that leads to success mean to both of you? And then I can answer too. Both of you as who you are, because it looks different depending on what body you're born into in this country, you know? And what that body looks like.
I think performance for me was like leaning into like the school piece of it. But in anything I do was to, I don't know, well, it's hard to extract what was like environment, what was my parents, what was my personality. But I definitely grew up, and I still am kind of like this, where I like to be good at what I do. Like it's probably to an unhealthy extent, where if I'm not good at something,
What does good mean? What does
like,
it mean to be good at what
I
you
want to
do?
be comparably better than whoever I'm being compared against.
What does
like,
better mean? But what are the markers of what makes something better than someone else?
Grades? You mean actual grades?
I mean, in everything. So like if it's like an activity, I like sports. I got out of sports once I got to it as a teenager. Not because I didn't necessarily dislike it, but I didn't feel like I was like the best. Honestly, I feel like that was a driver. But like any hobby or activity, like I definitely want to have the clout of being good at it. With grades, that means I want good grades.
But again, wait.
The
But
reason why
what
I
is a
can't
good grade?
extract like as close to 100 as possible, like as high as possible. But it's weird because my parents didn't necessarily enforce that. Like I don't know, it's like chicken or the egg. I feel like I started to do decent in school, so they expected it, but I'm not sure if like my brother wasn't an A student, and that was fine. Like it wasn't the end of the world. So it's weird to figure out what was nurture versus nature. I actually have no idea. But that's always been the case. Even now it's the case, but definitely when I was younger. And I wasn't even that smart, which means that I feel like I learned how to lean into the spectacle of being good. Like that's a skill in itself, even if I wasn't actually good.
Did you just say you weren't actually that smart?
I wasn't like I don't mean that in like a deprecating way. Like I wasn't like some like high school genius. Like
Prodigy.
I was probably like maybe above average student in my high school. Not top of my class or anything.
Then again, you did go to Southview, so it wasn't that hard to be a what?
Let us live.
Me and Leslie was at Jack Britt.
Let us. Y'all was at the bougie.
Too, Kevin.
Y'all was at the bougie school. I was at the intersection of the farmland and the streets.
Go Tigers. Y'all were Tigers, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we were the Buccaneers. We were Pirates.
Leslie,
Such a weird mascot, to be
Leslie.
honest. If you think about it conceptually, once again, with my art lens, weird conceptually. I think that performance in a way that led to success for me. Oof, I'm going to try. When I tell you guys that I did not prepare for this episode, I mean it. So you're getting the actual me trying to think out loud, which doesn't always go well. But
It'll be beautiful.
Thank you. I think that performance meant, when I think about all the influences in my environmental upbringing, which one that I didn't mention was, a conservative Christian upbringing. I think that performance that led to success meant definitely all A's, which was very specifically from my dad. It was just this like point of pride and like a way, I've mentioned it before, but it was a way that I could understand how to show my dad that I loved him and respected him, was to get all A's. It wasn't even about like that I'm smart, that I'm good. It was literally just like I knew it was this marker to him. And so like for me, that was a lot of motivation. And it worked out well because I enjoyed some aspects of school that made it, learning enjoyable. But it also looked like not exploring, let alone. So you can either feel spaces in yourself that have not been yet explored. Like if you think of people as shapes and they've got these outlines, you can notice, oh, there's something in the West Wing. There's a whole little path that I've just never gone into. Or you can proactively carve out and do the work to create new spaces within yourself, right? To exist in. And so I think that success looked like staying very closely within the outline that is drawn by what it means to be the daughter of a man who came from Korea to become a Christian pastor and to tell people about Jesus. And it looked like staying in that shape. So not only not exploring the extra parts of me that didn't fit that shape, but definitely not proactively trying to punch out some new parts that I wanted to explore, even if they weren't innate to me.
Question: performance. I personally think you can't separate performance from competition. So, in your guys' opinion, performance, the personality trait of being competitive or performative, nurture or nature?
Can we, before we do that, I want to hear your younger understanding, because I feel like that might be a rabbit hole.
What was the original question that we were asking each other about performance?
What performance in a way that led to success looked like for you growing up, considering all the external factors that would have created that idea?
Got you. Okay, so mother's Asian, similar to Leslie's experience, where Asian parents are very strict academically on wanting their kids to have all. I mean, like some Asian parents are like, if you even bring a B home, like it's a bad day.
And let's just real quick, I'm sorry, Kevin, but real quick, let's just make it clear, because some people might not know this. This is another one of those like things that I assume we're all on the same page with, but I realize moving through the world, some people don't know, especially white people. It's not because Asians are this idea of like nerds or like, it's because most Asians in this country are the children of people who sacrificed everything to get here, and they can see that your grades will lead to you having more opportunities than they had, not even necessarily because they buy wholesale into whatever XYZ you think. So please, like, just it's because parents love their kids and they've had a really hard time, and they can see one clear pathway for their kids to not have to worry about where their next meal is coming from.
For sure. And also, let's just be honest, like American standards are so horrendously lower
God,
than
it's Asians kind of aren't nerds. Okay.
than Asian standards. Like, let's be honest, in Asia, like you American motherfuckers, I'm American too. Us Americans would not survive compared to Koreans, Chinese, and Japanese. We would not.
Well, it's also the problematic
survive.
on their end because the rate of suicide by like poor homeborn Asian kids. Shout out to my brothers and sisters in the homeland, but sorry, you guys are dealing with way higher suicidal rates than we do because of that insane pressure. So it's not.
Asia gave us Samsung and sushi. So.
Oh God.
So and LG and 7-Eleven. So. Performance
LG. That's random.
Kevin
just loves his LG chocolate flip phone or whatever that old phone was called.
Oh my gosh.
And if you're Asian and you're listening to this, Lotte, like Lotte
we
gum, Lotte world, Lotte everything. Anyway. Performance yo. So if for me performance and doing performance well and succeeding look like good grades. That's actually I didn't do sports until I ran track in 9th grade, but I mean that was like for 1 year. So it looked like good grades. I hated school. Vince was above average. I was the bottom third of perform. I hated school. I wasn't good at it. I wasn't good at English. My artist brain kicked in early. It was hard. Like my artist brain worked in the abstract. So it was hard for me to like think in a logical, rational, reasonable way. My mind was always in the abstract. So very early on, I'm getting C's and D's and F's. And very early on, as a young kid in maybe 4th grade, I'm getting told by teachers and my parents that I'm like performing badly and that I'm a bad kid and that I can't focus and something's wrong with me and I'm not doing homework and I'm getting looked down upon, all this shit. So for me, very early on, I was told by like adults, like these are adults, these are teachers, these are people who are supposed to help you like navigate through life. And they're not looking at me as an artist, looking at me as a kid who's supposed to be like every other kid in their classroom. I'm being told that I'm a bad kid. So that's what performance looked like for me early on as a child.
So what I hear you saying, Kevin, is that our educational system, on one broad level, what you're saying is that our education system is not friendly, let alone conducive to capitalizing on artists, which is a broad umbrella.
Yes.
And it's not. Oh, go ahead, Vince. I see you twitching.
I mean, is our educational system conducive
to anybody?
Yeah.
If you want to be
honest,
if you want to be a prisoner or a factory worker, yes. If you want to be a prison worker who the bell that rings every 45 minutes tells you where to go, or a factory worker where the bell ring, if you literally Jack Britt, a teacher told me this, Jack Britt was built on the blueprint of a prison.
Jack Britt, just to clarify, is the high school where Kevin and I both attended. I was a freshman and he was a senior when we overlapped.
In Fayetteville, North Carolina. Jack Britt, the school was built on the blueprint of a prison. If you want to be a factory worker or a prisoner, the public school education system is, or if you want to be a lifelong student and spend your entire life in school, then public education is perfect for you. Or if you just happen to have a natural gifting to be able to perform in multiple venues and the public education is one of them, and you're just able to perform well and then just immediately transfer to another venue, then it's something that you can survive in. But for for artists in particular, it's such a horrible place to have to be in.
Such fertile ground. Just real quick, I want to plug Mark Fisher's Capitalist Realism book, which I had to go grab because this conversation reminds me of that. Honestly, I wish I would have prepared more, but it's funny, just plugging it now because it's funny you mentioned the prison system, which has all sorts of bad implications, or a factory worker, because there's this concept that Mark Fisher kind of ties into about like post-40 and the way of this, like the spectacle of performance and how I think you're right, because you're trained in school the way that you're expected to perform, as at least in my experience in like the corporate world, where it's this mix of PR and bureaucracy where you're not trying to do a good job. Like success isn't doing a good job. Success is performing well at an audit, right? Or getting good grades, which is not necessarily the same thing. It does not necessarily mean understanding a subject, right? So for the school context, like you can get an A.
Get it, Vince. Get it. Wait, but make sure you say. I have to say before I forget. I'm sorry, my brain is what is it at some point in your thing? You have to say what it means to get an A or what it means to perform well on an audit, because that is the root, right? Like, yeah. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Hopefully, help me out if I don't. We'll see. No, well, so for the school context, like, kind of what I said as a kid, like, I think I learned the skill and muscle of performatively doing well and being successful, and that there's plenty of subjects I didn't know the subject at what you'd imagine an A level would be, but I still got an A because I knew how to play to, like, state testing or whatever it is in the context of school. And I think that's just one manifestation of this idea of performance that is based on the spectacle, right? So when you work in corporate America, there's like the audit, or like a performance review, right? Where
performance.
I'm not doing this. Where oftentimes, like, your performance doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing the job well, or you couldn't be doing it better. You're doing it to the best under those constraints. And Mark Fisher talks about like just kind of the deleterious effects of that. And he like leans into like Kafka a lot, like a lot of Franz Kafka's work of like the bureaucracy and the spectacle. And it's a specifically leftist book, so it ties it into like capitalism, which I won't get on my soapbox today. But I know it's just funny. It's like insane that you just mentioned that either prison or factory worker, because I think that's so true and like such an open secret. Like, being an A student doesn't make you a genius. Getting a super good performance rating doesn't mean that you're actually a good worker. Being audited doesn't necessarily mean that your business is particularly successful or quality or providing some sort of good to society. Period.
It's so emotional. Like, I feel so emotional listening to what Vincent is saying, because to me it ties into this broad, again, I'm in my art mode, sorry, but it's one of the fundamental things that this narrative that Vincent is talking about boils down to is not only a failure to recognize that humans are part of a broader ecosystem that is essentially one large organism, that where people depend on each other, and it's needed that we have differences, and it's needed that we have different strengths and weaknesses, and it's needed that we have different types of intelligence and creative, and what comes out of us, what we store inside, and what we bring out to share with other people. It not only doesn't aid to that, it actively tries to tell a different story. It actively tries to tell us that we are meant to be individual and we are meant to compete with each other, and success can only be achieved at the expense of other people. Whereas I really do believe the real story is that the human machine, and the machine that we're a part of in terms of animal kind and the rest of the world, nature, is that we are all needed. If we were all empowered to be our fullest, actually how we come into this world, like, I think that things would function beautifully. And it's this story that we're told that we have to find success at the expense of each other. That's so sad. I don't know if that's at all what you were thinking of, Vincent. Yeah, but that's part of what, that's like, there's so much I could get into in replying to that, but that's like bouncing off and, you know, like zooming way out and being like, oh, here's a broad, yeah.
No, it is. And I think it brings us back to Kevin and his question. Like, so to answer your question, I don't think competition is the best way to get good performance. I think it's the easiest way, and it's an internalizing of like market logic, right? Like, humans are just another commodity. So you can audit them as you would like audit transactions or like some sort of physical product you're making. I'm not convinced, and it would take a lot of convincing for me to think that pure competition is the only and necessarily the best way to get good performance. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I'm not convinced that it's like the best way.
It's for sure. Same way. Sorry, real quick. I'll just say this and then sorry. I know, Kevin, we've been talking.
No, you're good.
It's the same way that for all my women out there or anybody who puts thought into their hair care, it's in the same way that if you look at products, this is a very niche metaphor, but you look at products that have like, what is it? Like silicone in them, and they will temporarily make your hair shinier, but in the long run, they break down the structure of your natural hair so that you will lose how your hair naturally exists in the world. I think that that's competition is the silicone in this metaphor.
Hmm.
It's like it'll temporarily produce shiny results that people like and are pleasing and are soft to touch and are good to look at, but it actually just breaks down humanity. It breaks down what makes us human. And when I was a little kid in high school participating in congressional debate, shout out to anybody who's in forensics, I was so good at it. And I can tell you guys that I so often did not understand what it was that I was actually debating. And it was because that whole competitive forensics arena, my time was better spent leaning into my skills as an orator and somebody who, when she wants to, can put together a convincing as fuck speech and make you think that I believe 1,000% whatever I want you to think that I believe, and that I have connected all the dots and done the actual groundwork to say with confidence what I'm saying, when that was never the case. I was a good orator, and that's why I did as well as I did. And I am sad. I wish that we had a system of, you know, debate clubs, let alone the actual education system, that rewarded people who were not good orators, but who took the time to think through the issues and develop opinions that reflected a nuanced and far-reaching examination, which would not lead to shiny statements that won debate competitions. I think that if you look at most of the problems facing us, they do not lend themselves easily to sound bites that would be picked up by the general masses.
Yeah.
Shout out to Speech and Debate.
Yeah, so the funny thing is, right, like I live in, as a poet, but as someone who used to rap, and the reason I got into rap was because of an arena and a subcategory of hip hop, of rap music called battle rap, which is competitive. It's strictly competitive. There's no sole purpose outside of battle rap other than the competitive nature of it. Kind of like gladiators, kind of like basketball players, kind of like football. So because my
just throwing all those into the same category, I like it.
Because of my introduction to art, because of my introduction to art was through the competitive art form, which is battle rap, and then it turned into art, and then poetry, and then dance. Because my introduction to art, poetry, dance, speech was in a competitive form, or it turned into competitive realms, I see the utility of competition. I just think the problem is, like, kind of like what you guys are touching on, which can be some of the downfalls of competition, is when it's utilized in a way that kind of dehumanizes people, but also marginalizes people, and also creates a space for people to be marginalized and not considered, and put to the sides of society and not cared for, that it becomes problematic. It has its demons, it has its issues, it has its problems. So I see the utility of competition, but at the same time, it's funny because when I was young, I didn't like to compete, especially in school, because I wasn't good at it. But also in sports, I didn't play sports. I didn't like to play sports. I wasn't an aggressive person. I didn't like the idea of aggression, especially in the form of like competition. Vince, I know this is like, seriously, I was a shy kid. The idea of fighting someone scared me. I was sensitive. I was very timid. I was very shy. And it wasn't until I like got older and like gained confidence, joined the military, started working. Like, it was a long time before I could like even look someone in the eyes, because I was so shy and timid. So like, I didn't like the idea of like competition and aggression and testosterone. But I see
Testosterone.
I see the utility of competition, but very much so, I also see like the issues it creates, especially when in like something like a public school education system, you use it as a one-way road to try to fit all of society into. And then what ends up happening is, I mean, whether it's dropout, whether it's failures, whether it's fill the blank with whoever isn't able
Fill the blank.
who isn't able to perform in a public school education system. It's this, kind of like going off the idea of capitalism, or creating factory workers, or creating prisoners. You push everyone through the public education school system, and you basically say one of three things: you're going to succeed as a factory worker, you're going to succeed as a prisoner, or maybe you're the special one, and you're going to jump the fence and become like a CEO and own a business one day. But if you make it through this system, you are going to turn into one of three things. You're going to jump past everyone. You're going to excel. We're going to go, oh, you're the special one. You get to own a business. Or you're going to go, oh, you dropped out. You get to become a prisoner and a criminal in society. Or, oh, you're amongst general pop. So you get to become a factory. Guess what? Congratulations. Here's your diploma. Here's your cap and gown. We're all going to applaud as you walk across the stage and straight into your factory for the rest of your fucking life. Congratulations.
Ooh. I'm holding myself back, but last economic though, but you just sounded like a fucking leftist. Like that's the neoliberal critique of the state training us as kids to excel in a way that's spectacle so that we are primed to just accept our alienated, miserable, no light at the end tunnel work existence as adults. Oh, it doesn't have to be that way, but we'll put a bit of that.
Wow. The emotional catharsis of this time together, you guys. I don't know if this was actually because your hand was shaking, Vincent, but for those of us watching on YouTube, like Vincent's microphone was like shaking on the side, and I was like vibing with the like shaking.
Thank you. Wow.
Yes, to this level. I do want to add in that if you look at things from an evolutionary perspective, which granted I'm more prone to want to talk about because if anyone who knows that's been listening, it's really been since my deconstruction that I engaged more with understanding the theory of evolution. And it's called the theory not because everything doesn't point to it strongly. It's called a theory because science is beautiful and that it's not a religion. It's not saying you must believe in evolution and put everything. It's saying this is what all the signs point to. This is the best working understanding that we have at this time. And we're open to learning and growing and changing based on what we learn, which is so beautiful. But from an evolutionary perspective, competition is part of what got us here. We're here because other iterations that evolution brought us were weaker. And thus we are here. And even our specific form of humanity is here because our ancestors aren't, because they died off. So I do think that in a sense, competition is ingrained, but I think that it's worth taking stock. I'm not going to say some statement about that humans are above in the way that we have positioned ourselves, but humans are the only species on Earth that is sending out machines into space that can send us back information about stuff that's X amount of impossible to comprehend amount of time and space away. Humans are the only creatures that have done so many of the things that we have done. And so I think it's kind of ridiculous to say, well, competition is part of our nature. Like we clearly are a species that is able to step outside of, examine, reflect on, and make manipulations to our nature. And we can choose to manipulate toward a form that pushes us into more hierarchy and more taking advantage of each other and more domination, or we can manipulate toward a form that creates an egalitarian society.
Yeah, no, I was looking through my little bit notes of prep from the questions that young Kevin sent over.
Nice.
Not exactly what you're saying, but like very related. And to be clear, like I agree, like there's just like a Darwinistic, and this is not necessarily meaning the theory of evolution like in a biological sense, but there's this like philosophy of we're just innately meant to like compete with each other. There has to be losers, which I think
the same comedy show that gives us men are meant to dominate women. It's just in our nature and our biology. Same comedy show.
Same comedy show. Different season. It's same show. But I like what you said about I don't know. I feel like as species, we outcompeted other species in natural selection, but I think it's not giving us enough credit as humans and our capacity as humans, right? And I think, again, for me, just the way I grew up, performance to me meant being successful in the sense of almost the spectacle. I think today I really value quality in everything I do, and that doesn't necessarily mean any sort of clout or, that I would pass some sort of audit. And to me, that's what performance is. the issue is we should value quality, but that shouldn't be where our identity is rooted. Because that's not the defining feature of humanity, right? Like, yeah, it means that we succeed in natural selection, but to think that that is like in a Darwinistic sense, like what makes us human is the fact that we can outcompete other species. It's not just I think a disgusting application of that, but I think it just doesn't give us enough credit as humans. Like, it's just something that we should celebrate, but it's not what is to be human. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to Christianize this moment in the podcast.
I was gonna say, I feel like we're in youth group. Like, this is like all the
Amen,
vibe, but
brother.
like without God.
Vince, I'm gonna stop you right there. It's not a man, it's a woman.
Alan, brother, you better put him in his place.
I prefer a nice NB, but I'll let you have the woman.
But
A and B.
because to touch on the idea of like,
Wait, what's A and D?
A and B, a non-binary. NB.
damn, he went up.
You better put Kevin in his place while he's trying to put you in his place.
Let's
Yo,
No.
I'm fickle. I'm gonna jump to whichever one I vibe with the most in the moment.
At least you honest about it. No, but to talk about the idea that what makes you human isn't just about how much value you can bring. Like, man, like take this. This is like Kevin Ortiz take on Christianity. What true Christianity
Don't act like
is.
this is a unique thing that you don't do
Nah,
this every
nah,
episode. Your take
not just me. Because what makes you know, like God says repeatedly through the Old Testament, he'll say like the fast that I chose, or true religion in the New Testament in James is this: to care for widows and orphans in their affliction, or the fast that I chose to care for the poor and the oppressed. So like, I think the fundamental thing, and you'll see this in animals, but the fundamental thing that I think that makes humans valuable or special is your ability to care for those who aren't strong enough to care for themselves, to protect those who aren't strong enough to protect themselves, to look after and include and to tribalize and to create an ecosystem that guards, protects, and strengthens those who aren't able enough to do for themselves, whether they're an orphan, whether they're a widow, whether they're a handicap, whether they're disenfranchised, whether they're marginalized. Fill in the blank with whatever space you can think of, whether they're a minority, whether they're whether they're Hispanic, they're Black, they're an immigrant. It's to try. It's if you're a human and then you have an advantage, whether it's wealth or physical strength or position or network or resource, it's to look at your strength, look at someone who's hurting and disadvantaged because they don't have access to that strength, and then to provide for them out of your strength until they're able to be self-sufficient enough to guard and to protect, to create an environment and an ecosystem where they can succeed equally as you, so you don't have to protect them. Now they can be strong enough to then go do that for someone else. It's not because, oh, I'm a human and I'm superior, so I can like disenfranchise everyone else. No, fuck, it's not about that. It's about looking at who's disenfranchised and making them not disenfranchised.
I'll say quickly in response to that there was this horrific study done on some kind of primate. I can't remember what it was, in some decade, maybe the 30s, maybe the 40s, not sure, maybe the 60s. But anyway, the point is that they did this study on these primates, and the study was that the primates were shocked with some kind of thing that caused intense pain. And then basically they were trained through a series of experiments to learn that they could either receive the shock, and that would stop another primate in their group. If they received the shock, their other fellow primate wouldn't receive it. Or if they said, no, I don't want the shock, if they avoided it, then someone else would get the pain. You tracking? And
Yeah.
the experiment found that in the overwhelming majority of cases, the primates chose to receive the pain. Even if they had received it multiple times already, they would still choose it rather than put it on. So I will just take it one step further and say, I don't even think that's a uniquely human thing. I think that's a thing that has shown up in the forms of life that have evolved consistently, and it's a choice. We can choose to recognize that, yeah, that is a fundamental part that shows up in life, but it's not something to be taken for granted. We have to choose.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think Leslie's right, but just because I want to argue, did y'all know monkeys eat other monkeys?
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying all monkeys are angels, okay?
Humans eat other humans. What you mean? There's a couple of humans out there that
Not more than a couple.
But us humans look at those humans and go, those are the cannibals and they're crazy. Monkeys are like when they
speak
when
for
they see
yourself. Never mind.
when they see each other doing that, they're like, oh shit, they
That
got
is going off the rails.
damn, no, what I was good. Oh
No,
that-
yeah, your point stands, and that's
Let
the
me-
whole
let-
point. Is there's a lot of things that life gives
Yeah.
rise to, and we are in the unique position to where our choices have much more far-reaching implications than any other species on planet Earth.
No, yeah.
Our
sure.
choices affect every other piece of the life chain,
For
whereas
sure.
well, actually, I actually somewhat the
Mm.
same, right? Like if bees goes, we're gone. If bees die off, then we're gone. So in the same way, but it's different, right? Because we have a different level
Yeah.
of consciousness and ability to metasize, to look in a meta way. Anyway,
No, the only thing I was going to say, which I don't know what Leslie said made me think of this about the monkey being willing to take the shock so that its other friend or other monkey.
it was
wouldn't
a
have to take-
primate. I don't know what it was.
Primate.
Yeah, look up the
Um,
story.
So like I don't know why it made me think of this, but so I was watching the Homecoming King by Hassan Minhaj the other day, rewatching it, and his father was talking to him because he talked about his painful relationship with a white girl he had went through and how that jaded his perspective on interracial relationships between Indian men and white women, and his father was getting upset with him about not forgiving the white woman, and he was like, Dad, your whole life you spent time like not being a bigger man and holding grudges against like because we're Hindu or we're Muslim and holding grudges or whatever. Hindus and Muslims, so Indians are like a division between them because of Hinduism and Islam. And so he was talking, and so he was like, Dad, you've spent your whole life having these issues amongst that circle. Why are you now all of a sudden asking me to be the bigger man in this relationship with a white woman? And he said and then Hassan Minhaj started quoting this Indian statement his dad told him, and he translated it, and he was basically saying, Hassan, you're gosh, it makes me so emotional to say this because it's such a powerful statement. He goes,
I saw you tweet this. It makes me emotional too.
he goes, Hassan, your courage to do what's right has to be stronger than your fear of getting hurt. Like, so be brave. But Hassan, be brave because, yeah, your courage to do what's right has to be stronger than your fear of getting hurt. So be brave, Hassan, be brave. And there's this idea of this big meta narrative idea of, yes, this girl broke your heart because her parents were racist and didn't want pictures of you with their daughter showing to their family on Facebook because you're a brown guy. And so that's why they didn't let you go with their daughter to prom. But you have to forgive her because as a human being, your courage to do what's right, which is forgiveness, has to be stronger than your fear of forgiving her and letting her back in, or letting just trust back into your life for these kind of people who may hurt you, of fear of maybe re-allowing someone to. So just this idea of like, man, like your courage to do what's right, like I can take the hurt as the primate instead of this, like the courage to do what's right, like he doesn't have to, she or he doesn't have to suffer. I can take this hit and they don't have to, like, yeah, just that like if you have that capacity and that autonomy and that strength, like isn't that what it's about? It's getting to a place like in this country where what just happened with this election, looking at people and going, there's an unfair, unbalanced wrong that is happening to blacks specifically in this country. So everyone else has to stand up and stand in the gap and go, I have to put myself on the line in any way that I can, whether it's my vote, whether it's my voice, whatever I can, so that we can try to bring at least a little small percentage or more a glimmer of a hope back towards the black community. Try to receive a little bit of the shock, a little bit of the unpopular with your friends and family at holiday dinners, or unpopularity in your workplace or amongst your white church in Panhandle, Florida, Manor Church, West Florida. Take some unpopularity on Facebook. Like, fam, you have to, like, dog, let's just be honest, man. I love Pastor Chris to death, but they know this. It's Trump country, Panhandle, Florida, and I'm in a church of 400 people, predominantly 99.9% white. I'm not the popular kid at that church, except with Chris Shinnick, who's the pastor. So, yeah, just this capacity and competency of a species to look and go, yeah, if I got to take a proverbial or a literal shock because it's right, it's the right thing to do, then, man, we have to do that.
Well, and the fact that shows, I'll just add, but yes, everything you said, but the fact that shows up in life, it just shows up when life manifests, that shows up in different species. It's not a uniquely human characteristic.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's so beautiful
For sure.
Again, we're in a unique position to choose. It shows up. It can be argued just as much that it's in our nature as competitiveness, as hierarchy. We get to choose, and we have
Oh, for sure.
big consequences to our
Actually, to agree with Leslie, I forgot what it was. Basically, there's a story. There's this bird, and this guy, like this researcher. No,
Vincent
think about
is
it.
never gonna get to. Vincent's been trying to wrap us up for 20 minutes.
No, keep going, keep going.
Basically, basically this
What's
guy
the
was
word, bird?
this guy was trying to approach this mother bird's babies, and the mother bird started like playing dead because the mother bird knew, if I play dead, I can get this human to come get me, and it'll give my babies a chance to get away. And the researcher started like I think she said she started crying. She was like, "Holy shit, this bird as a mother is sacrificing itself. It doesn't know what's going on. It just sees me as a predator, and it doesn't know I'm here to do research, that I'm not going to hurt the babies." It started actually playing, like, at first it started like trying to attack the researcher and like dive bomb it, and it didn't work. So then the mother bird played dead to try to get the researcher to take it. And so yeah, just this capacity of beyond human species of life.
That's beautiful, but I also think the argument could be made like, okay, it's its progeny. It's ultimately like preservation of self because it's its family line. I think it's still beautiful, but I think that the example of the primates is a little even more cutting because it's like they had no vested interest. I mean, you could say the species, but no, I mean, they're part of the species. They're getting, so you know what I mean? Like, it's not a mom to a child where it's like, it's their lineage. It's like, there's no reason other than just some sort of innate understanding. I would rather take this pain than have somebody else take it, and I can make that choice.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we've gotten to so many domains
I think
that are actually
went
really
way
cool.
off the rails of the original plan, but it was
well, I mean, it's fine. I feel like we covered so many different things between me screaming out capitalism. We kind of got into some like speciesism territory, but I think to wrap it all together, yes. Ooh. Check out Mexi on YouTube for content around speciesism as well as it relates to veganism, as well as it relates to the commodification of food. But two questions that you guys can answer both or choose one that I think will tie it all together is either we talked about how we define performance or how we defined it as a kid, like how we defined it today, and we've kind of scratched at this throughout the whole conversation. So either how do we see it today, or what's the prescription, like how we want to define performance? And then for me, just super quick,
you should take longer, Vincent, because we've been blabbing for so long. Please, like,
well, I cheated. This was part of my, well, if I can flesh, I feel like it's pretty simple, but I jotted this down. To me, if I were to describe performance today as I see it, as well as how I wish we saw it as a collective, is performance to me is either fostering a clear or curious mind. So in the context of school, it would be like a curious mind, but in the context of like wanting what's best, or even performing at work, like having a clear understanding of what that means, and then having a clear or curious mind, and then also possessing quality tools to pursue either that curiosity or that vision. Does that make sense?
What would one example of a quality tool be?
I think education is the most immediate. So having a curious mind and the right tools to pursue that curiosity, which a counter example would be fucking Common Core, like state testing, right? Like that's not a tool that gets you to a more curious mind. Like going back to what we talked about with like being performative with success, or even like the case of Kevin, like feeling like he's a bad student. Compared to what though, right? Like compared to these like arbitrary state standards of A, B, C, D, which mean you just did this test this certain way. So having the right kind of tools that would foster you to be curious. So maybe finding out that Kevin's an artist, so his education should be geared to artistry, or maybe he needs to learn fucking math and science, like, and he doesn't like it, but using art or vehicles that make him more curious and excited to get there would be, in my perfect world, an example.
As a personal definition, it means that if I ever have a family, like if I ever have a wife and kids, that when I die, I'm looking at them on my deathbed, and then I'm in a room full of love, who I love them and they love me. And like, I remember I read this book by this guy, and he said, success for me means the people who know me best respect me most.
Ooh,
My which if you
that's
think, yeah,
good.
so I'll leave it at that. So for me, success is going to be a personal definition. I'm on my deathbed, and if I have family, whether it's my kids and wife or my mom, my dad, my brother, whoever is there on my deathbed, friends, family, I'm in a room and we all genuinely love each other. And there's like, even if there's whatever we went through in life, we just are putting that aside. We love each other in that room. And also that I feel like I did everything, like I'm at the end of my life, and everything I wanted to do with art and poetry, I felt like there's no regrets that I had. As a general objective definition of success, I think my rule of thumb is, did you do something that you felt like was meaningful to life personally? And did you do something to make life better for others? So did you personally fulfill like a personal sense of meaning and significance, not just happiness, not just shallow, like when Cornel West says, not just the titillation of the flesh, but the stirring of the soul? So did you not do any, not did you not just like have fun and get happy, but did you do something that moved your soul personally for your own fulfillment? But then also, did you do something to try to move the ball down the field further towards the end zone for someone other than yourself?
I literally love that. I feel like the difference from what we all said about our childhood understanding and yours is like the focus on success as it relates to you relating to other people, right? Which kind of goes to your like species-esque talk, which is beautiful. You can be a straight A student but not give anything to society or your loved ones, and that's not success.
That's a fact.
That's not performing.
There it is. I think that my definition of, I don't even know what we're defining, performance, success, whatever we're talking about, I feel like I understand what I want to define, but like it is space to engage fully and meaningfully and without limit with both what is fact and what is possible. I don't think our current education system gives rise to that. I don't think that the way that we tend to parent gives rise to that. I don't think the way we tend to, if we end up in positions of power, whether that be at work, in friendships, if we have more influence, in any given situation, in human experience where we have power, I don't think we tend to think that way, where it's like, how can I create space for myself and the people around me to engage fully with both what is and what could be? Even if we just fully engaged with one little facet of things that we learn about in school, boom, can you imagine the possibility? Biology class, instead of slides where we learned the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, can you imagine if we actually engaged with the processes that give rise to what we know as consciousness, and what that would mean for music, for poetry, for bioengineering, for, you know, like, there should be more synergy amongst the things that we've decided are called disciplines. That's why it's been so breathtaking throughout history as different fields of study have come together, as we have arrived at. We have astronomy, we have physics, we have astrophysics. Why have we not from the beginning treated the pursuit of knowledge as a synergistic discipline? To where, of course, you have to specialize, right? So that there's enough knowledge in one area to fuse it with another. But yes, those are my thoughts.
No, fuck with that.
Hell yeah.
Engage with a blade of grass, you know? You take a blade of grass, all the ways that you can engage with it, your smell, your sight, your taste, what processes are going on within it, what it means that the sun is hitting it and the chlorophyll is producing what it needs, what the sun, like, you can take anything, and if you engage fully with it, it opens up so much, both within what we know and what we could know and what we
Did you
could
do
imagine.
Is that inspired by some work that feels like very familiar in a Leslie way? Like,
Not that I know of, but it's very possible that there's something floating around that I don't
like a
remember that I read
poem
or
or something. Okay.
Leslie,
Like,
let me tell you
something that you produce. Like, it feels familiar.
Oh, something that I
Leslie,
produced? Aw.
Yeah.
Leslie's that was like basically what Leslie just said is the essence of the job of an artist, which is to remind adults the novelty of what we've what life has made common to us. So like the job of an artist is to help us find that spark again and that novelty and that first time impression of things that because we've spent so much time around it, it becomes familiarity and becomes commonplace, to re-engage with it in a fresh new way as if we were a child seeing it for the first time. So Leslie's saying like taste, touch, smell, sound, sight, like all these like that. That's basically essentially what the job of an artist is to do, is to reintroduce that idea of novelty to things we found commonplace.
You set me up too perfect for me to not do it, Kevin. I have to read this quote. I think it's by James Baldwin, but I want to get it right because I think it's important.
My man.
Okay, yeah, it was James Baldwin. The purpose of art is to lay bare the questions that have been hidden by the answers, which gets down to so much of what we talked about tonight. The questions that have been hidden by the answers. Let's rediscover questions. Let's not focus on arriving at answers. Let's enjoy the beauty of the process. Okay, I'm getting too sappy here.
Sorry, y'all. This is a night version. We've all had a couple drinks, so
Leslie's had some mushrooms. We're lit.
Oh, I did not. Just so everyone knows, you guys, like literally not. Okay. So.
I'm joking, but yeah, it's a night episode, so we're more lit than usual.
Yeah, and we're just all relieved and happy to be here.
Well, I hope everyone's having a great evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like we're just in a... It's so close to the election. We're just in a great mood.
In contrast to our last episode when we tried to talk about fun with 1 week to go in the election, apologies to everyone who had to sit through that exercise that we tried to do.
For everyone who we tried to do a fun episode like when we were still on edge, instead of waiting until like we could have killed a fun episode. This could have been murdered. And also
the anxiety in that episode is palpable, at least to me. I can see it, like at least emanating from me. Seriously though, want to take a moment. Thank you so much for everyone who's not only listening but like texting us their reactions. Like,
Elliot,
I continue to be shocked and floored that even my close friends are like actively listening, let alone giving me their feedback. Thank you. Like, it's amazing. So thankful of amazing people.
1,000.
Yeah.
1,000. Because 99% of y'all are definitely Vince and Leslie's friends, so I can't take no credit. So thank y'all, and I love y'all. I don't know y'all, but my God, I want to kiss all of your faces.
Hey.
Oh my gosh.
Leslie, I feel like you should be the one that closes us out today.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Bottomless podcast. This is so genuine. I might sound corny as fuck, but like I'm feeling it, you guys. Thank you
Keeping
for
all of this.
Not because our goal is for our voices to be prioritized above others, but because
that's really not performance for us. Define it. Let them know what's performance.
But I think because our real goal is engaging each other in a real way and having a record of it, and how special is it that people in our lives are like engaging with it too, because some of this is stuff that we haven't talked about, right, with you guys. And then the fact we're getting to have these conversations after the fact because you took the time out of your day to spend like an hour and a half listening to us talking to this. We love you guys.
Wait. I'm so sorry. Since we're closing out, this is what I wanted to say. This is the whole purpose and reason for this episode.
What?
If you are listening, and if you feel like me, basically the whole reason I thought about this was because if you can resonate with anything what I just said, which is you're upset or you felt oppressed by how your parents, teachers, or society, your workplace your boss made you feel, know that there are people who feel like you, know that you have company and companionship with people who feel like you and agree with you, and please strive to find the boldness and the courage to create your own lane in life. Do not, please God, do not become a 50, 60, 70-year-old person full of resentment because you followed what your parents wanted you to do, what your pastor, what society, what your job, what teachers wanted you to do. Please, your significant other, please, as fast as you can, find the boldness and the courage to explore the dreams of your heart or the things that are slowly fizzling inside of you that you're too scared to acknowledge. And please carve out your own path in life and define for like I told Vince this when we had kind of pre-production, determine what your dash is going to be. Your birth year, your death year, you get to decide what the dash is consists of. Don't let parents
on your tombstone.
on your
On your
tombstone,
Right.
tombstone, the dash between birth and death. Don't let anyone, not significant other, not parents, not job, not society, determine what that dash is comprised of. Determine your own dash.
So fucking sappy, but love it.
Fucking
Thank you
beautiful.
all.
Yeah.
Bottomless.